Well, good afternoon, George. Thank you so much for inviting us into your offices. You have a beautiful office here in Coral Gables, and we appreciate you inviting us in and to get to speak with you and share more about your campaign with the community. And again, at the end of the day, we want all the voters to have the best information, to really get to know the candidates, not go blind into the voting booth, to really have a feel for, hey, what I like about candidate A versus candidate B, and make an educated choice. And we want to, kind of share some of the same kind of questions with all the candidates to make it fair for everybody. So we want to start off with fundraising, and your opponent has a significant war chest in terms of the campaign fundraising for the Miami-Dade Commission seat that's currently held by Rebecca. So she's term limited out. So now both you and Kevin were the ones who got enough votes to go to this runoff. And so right now he's leading in terms of the fundraising. Some people will say that's great. It shows that he has a great ability to raise funds. Other people will say, hey, that may make him beholden to special interests. Give me your thoughts. What do you think about all this?
Well, listen, I think raising immense amounts of cash for a campaign certainly make you beholden to a lot of people, especially in the case of Mr. Cabrera. He's not raising a lot of money based on small donations from family, friends, small businesses. He's raising that money in huge chunks of money. Okay. I think that does create a significant concern for me in terms of being beholden to certain folks later on. I think a particular concern is when you analyze his fundraising sheets, you see about $100,000 donated to him by the county commissioner who was just arrested a few years ago and suspended today by Governor DeSantis. I think that's an indication of sort of the strings that...
Is that Joe Martinez?
Joe Martinez, yeah.
Okay.
There are some of the strings that come attached to some of that money. You'll see about over $200,000 donated to him by Commissioner, or soon to be Commissioner-elect, Anthony Rodriguez. Okay. Those are alliances that form with folks whose number one priority isn't District 6. It's rightfully so, their own districts. Okay. And it's always been the case in this campaign that Kevin is going to raise quicker, larger money from lobbyists and special interests, and what everybody calls transactional donors. In other words, they're donating not because they think you're the best candidate, but because their business depends on votes that you make, and they're trying to ingratiate yourself. He's always had the in on that type of money. Okay. Because at the end of the day, that's exactly what he does for a living. He's a lobbyist. Okay. For Mercury. That's what he's been for many years. You can check out his financial disclosure. His primary source of income is a paycheck from that lobbying company. And it's easy to just say lobbying, but you really have to analyze what lobbying is. Lobbying is the profession of attempting to influence government and influence politicians' decisions for the economic benefit of a corporation or entity that's paying you to do so. Right. So, Kevin's in that same group of transactional money. Those are the circles he rolls in. We're confident that we're going to be able to raise enough money to do what we need to do to see victory in this campaign. You don't need that much money. At some point, it becomes a question of you certainly need a certain amount of money, right? Right. But you don't need, once you start just gathering money in a political action committee and money that you get to keep whether you win or lose after, that starts raising questions for me. And we're confident we're going to be able to raise enough money. Keep in mind that when this is all said and done, we're going to have spent $1 million, probably a little bit more. That's just me on this race. So that's not chump change. I mean, if you can't win when you start talking about the difference between $1 million and $1.7 million, I mean, what difference does that really make at the end of the day in terms of prospects for victory? Right.
So, and I didn't realize your war chest had grown to that size. So, congratulations in terms of achieving.
My war chest is not currently that size. Neither is his. But raised and spent. That's where we'll be at.
Understood. So moving on from the fundraising, I want to talk a little bit about the endorsements. Obviously from a big name, Donald Trump comes in terms of his endorsement of Kevin Cabrera. you locally here in Miami Springs, I understand you've secured 3 of the current Miami Springs council members as endorsers for your campaign. Can you tell us a little bit about who they are and what they've told you about their endorsements?
Yes, I'm very proud to have the endorsement of Mayor Maria Mitchell, of Councilman Bob Best, and of Councilman Victor Vasquez, who was a opponent of mine in the first round of this campaign,
Right.
And the person who received the 3rd most votes in the first round. I found Victor Vasquez especially to be a very formidable opponent in an election. His popularity was spread much wider, even beyond Miami Springs, than we expected. And we're very honored to have all their support, because at the end of the day, if you go and ask them and you see the statements they've made about it, they are endorsing me for 2 reasons. First, they sincerely believe, and rightfully so, that I am the most qualified candidate and the candidate who is doing this for the right reasons. Number 2, they know that I have an understanding of their particular city, Miami Springs, their town. They know that I come from a similar place in Coral Gables, that I understand what you all in Miami Springs desire for your community, and that is for it to be just that, a community, a residential community where you can raise your kids in peace, where you can retire to after venturing out of the city limits during the day for work maybe, and a place where you can always call home and will always feel like home. That's something that we value very much in Coral Gables, to the point where we will stop at nothing to protect it. And I understand the limitations as a city that you run into when you're trying to achieve some of the things you want to achieve, whether it be because of Tallahassee preemption or county approval on things. And I understand that it's the primary job of a county commissioner, in my view, to facilitate cities like Miami Springs, like Coral Gables, like West Miami, to do the things they want to do without getting in their way, because they are the ones who know what they want and what they need.
Excellent. So you alluded to some of the reasons they supported you, and within that, kind of hidden in what you said is also your experience. You are the only candidate that currently in place that is a current commissioner and has served as and previously been elected to a governing body. So tell us about your experience as a Coral Gables commissioner. How long have you been serving, and how that helps you towards the county commission seat?
So I've been serving as a Coral Gables commissioner for 3.5 years approximately. The experience is something you can't purchase. You can't download it. You have to actually do it. And the fact is that you learn quickly when you're elected for a public office that things aren't as easy to accomplish as you thought they were, except that they do become that way once you understand the way it really works. And the way it really works is by building consensus with colleagues, getting support from the folks whose votes you need to get things done, listening to your colleagues, listening to residents, and sort of proving the case, if you will, that the direction you believe we should go in is the direction that's the right direction. Handling staff is another thing where experience really comes into play. Many times, politicians or elected officials are, I don't want to say sabotaged, but frustrated by their inability to accomplish things. That deals with their inability to get staff to accomplish things for them. Third is understanding the interworking of a budget. A budget and how you spend county money is not county or city money is not like any small business you've ever run before. I mean, you're talking about the equivalent of what essentially is a major corporation. In the case of Miami-Dade County, a $10 billion budget with more employees than I think any company here in South Florida.
Absolutely.
So these are things that you learn on the job, and without a doubt, I believe puts me in the best position to hit the ground running. And I think that's one of the reasons that I have those endorsements, but also because when you've already been there and done it, there's no need to speculate as to how you're going to behave or what you're going to prioritize or what success you're going to have when you get up there. I mean, I already have a proven track record over the last 3.5 years, and in this case, in a city very similar to Miami Springs. Now, my opponent tries to characterize me as a career politician, even though I've only been there for about approximately 3.5 years and truly do not have any aspirations of becoming a career politician. He lacks experience. He has advertised before that he held an elected position before, although I believe recently saying that it wasn't elected, it was appointed.
Okay.
And defines himself as a quote-unquote political outsider, trying to characterize me as a career politician and him as a political outsider, when in fact he's the definition of a political insider and has been around politics and government much more than I have, and not just any part of politics and government as a public servant serving the residents, but the bad part about government, which is the special interests lobbying, contributing, and trying to influence the outcomes that are not consistent with the interests of the residents.
Now, I'll say, and I know lobbying, lobbying is what it is in terms of the career, and obviously sometimes it is disparaged. I will, I say the city of Miami Springs uses a lobbying firm, and in fact, many cities use, I believe, the same firm that helps us out with issues in Miami Springs, like, we're trying to get a bed tax in the city of Miami Springs. So we do use, like the city of Miami Springs does use a lobbying firm that basically, they have more time than the people, the officials at the city of Miami Springs have to reach out to the officials in the state of Florida. And the lobbying firms mostly used with state issues. So, I get where you go in terms of, lobbying and all that, but, I wanted to, there's, it's not all a bad.
Let me explain.
Right, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with lobbying. It's a very old profession.
Yeah.
It's been around for a long time. And lobbying in itself is not a problem. What is a problem is when you try to convince the residents that you can take off that lobbying hat one day and the very next day put on the hat of an elected official who's not beholden to lobbyists or clients or corporations or special interests from one day to the next. It becomes even more concerning when you look at a candidate's financial disclosures and see that the primary source of their income, if not their entire income, is from lobbying, which begs the question, when you become elected, how are you going to make money? As you know, the annual salary for a county commissioner is $6,000 a year. My opponent's a 31-year-old young man who has probably not saved up a nest egg yet. He's at the beginning of his adult, really, productivity.
Right.
So when his primary income is lobbying, in other words, cutting deals, trying to get deals cut with the government and influencing the outcome of government action for the benefit of corporations, what is he going to do from one day to the next? He becomes that elected official. Is he going to stop lobbying? Is he going to continue lobbying? It's not that lobbying in and of itself is bad. It's that the two things don't mix.
Get your point. As we go on to some other topics, and this is a pet peeve of mine, folks, that I like bringing up, and it's transportation, and it just, Miami is seeing this boom in migration here, and we've always been a source of migration, whether it's from South America, the Caribbean, and from other states. Post-COVID, it's gone nuts with a big increase from states like New York, California, and the migration from South America hasn't stopped. So we have this boom in migration, and we still have this, I'll call it a 1980s transportation system. We have the same metro rail we've had since the 80s, since the days of Miami Vice, the days of Dan Marino, the days of the first Top Gun, and I don't see that anything has really changed or improved in our transportation. So when I see a beautiful Miami of the future, this big city, the capital of the Caribbean, the capital of Latin America, I see we need a better rail / monorail / metro mover kind of system to be that future of the city. And we need to do it now. However expensive it is, do it now, because in 20 years it's going to be even more expensive than it would have been if we did it, let's say, 20 years ago. So give me your thoughts in terms of transportation and how we can make our transportation system something that competes with the world.
Yeah, so transportation should be something that a world-class city is proud of. It's probably, in my opinion, if not the single most, one of the top 3 amenities that a city can offer, not only to its residents, but to its visitors.
Yeah.
We depend here in South Florida not only on our local economy, but also on our tourist economy. We are becoming quickly, whether we like it or not, a world-class city. a city where everybody wants to be, everybody wants to work, everybody wants to play, and that's a great thing for the residents of Miami-Dade County, because it's going to present a lot of opportunity for them and for their children and for their families and for their futures. But as we get thrown into what I believe is this next level of being a world-class city, it's inexcusable that we're running around with that 1980s transportation system, like you said. We need to have something that works. We need to have something that we can be proud of. What we've seen over decade is broken promises, plans that aren't executed, a lot of thinking and not enough action. I believe the future of transportation is rail, not just singular lines that go from one general area to the other, but what I believe they call circuit connectors, which once you arrive at an area similar to Chicago, you can move around within that area.
Right.
And it has to be new, it has to be comfortable, and it has to be attractive. And if folks, the circuit connector, for instance, allow folks to travel to where they are and not have to instead resort to their car, because once they get there, they won't be able to go to their second or third destination. I agree that I would love to do so without debt, and that half penny tax that we all voted for sits there, and it's not being used correctly. And I believe that's the end of that charade is coming soon.
Right.
But irrespective of that, I would love to be able to do it without debt. But at the same time, I agree with you that we need to prioritize transportation much more than we are now and get it done one way or the other. Because at this point, it's becoming inexcusable. And with every year that passes, it's even more inexcusable that we are still operating with a system that is not serving residents or tourists for that matter. And on that note, I think there's going to be a battle coming up in terms of what expansions of that transportation go first and in what order. Obviously, it'd be great to do it all at the same time.
Right.
I don't believe that's going to end up happening. And when it does, I think we need to, when it does come in phases or stages, we need to prioritize residents first. Not prioritize any line that's going to have ridership that is primarily tourists.
Understood. And then I kind of see where you're going with there with maybe push towards the beach versus some other areas, but I'm more concerned that they set up the plan now. What's the future system look like? Lock it in, and then let's build it. Whether one part's built first.
Yeah, we can.
I could be flexible in terms of what gets built, but let's do it because it's so bad right now.
Let's do it. Let's fund it.
Yeah,
and let's fund it. And even if we can't fund it on day one, as soon as the plan is drawn up, to lock in a plan to fund it within a specified certain amount of time.
All right. Now we can talk about some fun things. You've been campaigning for a while. You get to talk to a lot of residents. I don't know if you want to share, how many residents you've been talking to, but as you get to talk to them, I'm sure people start to open up with you and share what their concerns. So tell me, as you're talking to residents and voters, what are the biggest concerns you're hearing from them?
Well, I think the number one concern is the cost of living. Included in that subject is the cost of housing. We've spoken about that ad nauseum, including in our first interview that we did here. It's too expensive to live here in Miami-Dade County. It's becoming much more expensive, and I believe it's going to continue to become more expensive to live here. We need to ensure, through various measures that I've set forth in the last interview and in various other forums, that we increase our inventory without affecting our single-family residences, so that we can bring down this cost of living for our residents here, and so our people don't need to leave, including the people that we really need to stay here,
right.
Firefighters, teachers, and the folks that make this economy move. So that's by far the number one complaint I get, especially with folks who are of an older age, and us being the district with the highest demographic of elderly,
seniors,
and senior. So that's a major concern. It's gonna really come to a head over the next 5 years. The other thing that I continue to hear at the doors is transparency and accountability. Though, I mean, I think it seeps into every single issue. There's a level of distrust, perhaps more than ever, in what our government is doing and whether they're truly prioritizing the interests of the everyday person in District 6 or the everyday person in Miami-Dade County. It doesn't help when we see stories like commissioners being arrested for bribery.
Yeah.
And what I try to tell these folks is that, and try to make them see is that, I'm the candidate who doesn't come from that world, and I'm the candidate who you won't be able to find connections to that world. Whereas with my opponent, you're truly getting more of the same thing. You're getting more of the same thing.
Okay. As you've gone through and campaigning, tell me a little bit what surprised you. I'm sure some things you were expecting, but some things may have surprised you as you've gone through this process. What surprised you the most over this campaign period?
Well, Nestor, I'll say that probably my biggest surprise. Like, I've been through a political election before in 2019, and I know that politics can get dirty, and that they often are dirty. But I think what my biggest surprise, and perhaps the better word is disappointment, has been the negative campaign tactics that have been employed in this campaign against me. Outright lies, claim flyers being sent out repeatedly in text messages, claiming that I've been arrested 3 times, that I've been incarcerated, photoshopping me in an orange jumpsuit behind bars with handcuffs on. Making me a little bit balder than I really am, which made me extra mad. Allegations regarding homestead fraud, allegations regarding that I'm funded by hourly motels, things that are pure fabrications. I've never been arrested, never been incarcerated, never been investigated for fraud, never received a contribution from a single motel owner or corporation that operates a motel.
Right.
It shows to me that we've gotten to a point in our political environment where folks, not all of them, but some folks are prepared to do and say anything in order to get elected. And that's been the biggest surprise / disappointment for me.
Right.
I'm a licensed attorney. I make a living based on folks trusting me with some of their biggest problems. I'm a father of 3 girls, a public servant, city commissioner for the city of Coral Gables. And I'd like to think that I've spent over a decade since having graduated law school trying to establish a reputation of trust in this community and giving back to the community, giving a lot of time to this community that I don't have to, but I do because I genuinely feel compelled to try to make this a better place for your kids and my kids. To then be attacked with 100% lies is really disappointing. And things that are true are fair game. But when you start simply fabricating things, what it does is it dissuades a lot of very good people from running for office because you can't even count on having done things the right way, even if you do them the right way.
Wow.
Somebody may come along who's incredibly desperate to gain power and just go ahead and spread to every resident in the district that you didn't do it the right way when you made sacrifices and really put an effort and were raised to do it the right way.
Well, I appreciate you clearing there because there was I mentioned the Miami Springs Community Forum that people were just sick and tired of a lot of the negative campaign that was going on and what they were receiving in the mail. So you're unequivocally saying all that was false and all the in terms of jail and homestead and I don't know what else was said. But there was a lot. I did see it, and I got some of those at home too. So you're here to say unequivocally all that was false.
Unequivocally false. They had also created a website publishing, and by the way, I'll tell you right here, I'm at wit's end, and we are going to not that I'm at wit's end, but I will not take it anymore, and my supporters won't take it anymore, and there will be consequences.
Okay.
We recently sent a cease and desist letter to the attorney who's affiliated with some of these anonymous PACs, even though we know that it's my opponent, Kevin Marino Cabrera, demanding that they immediately take down that website because everything on there is false.
Okay.
And I'm happy to report that as of yesterday, within less than 24 hours, although they claimed that they did not know who was operating the website, the website was taken down.
Okay.
That's one step closer. Now it's going to be our job to continue fighting that back and informing the residents of District 6 that it's simply not true. I mean, I've run into old people that believe it's a real photograph of me in an orange jumpsuit behind bars.
Yeah.
I mean, you have folks that don't have the ability maybe to verify things online and really aren't, may not be as good as discerning what's true, what's not, or just maybe it causes pause or hesitation. But over the next several weeks in this second round, this brand new election where we're going to have a brand new electorate, more than double the people are going to come out to vote compared to August, we're going to be explaining to them and getting the message out that they're dealing with a candidate here who has chosen a path of, instead of talking about himself and why he's qualified, to lie about the other candidate and to try to win this election based purely on lies and defamation.
Wow. And I'm sure you feel good getting that off your chest. And I know if, and I'm sure the wife, sometimes the wife bears the, because, someone says something about you, you kind of, whatever, it goes with the, you signed up for this. But sometimes the wife's like, hey, they're talking about my husband. They really take it personal.
Yeah,
so
she's not happy. And, the saddest part is, one of the people that was affecting the most was my grandmother.
Oh my goodness!
And sadly, she passed away just days before the election on August 23rd. Wow. And she won't be around to see me, defend myself, and for there to be consequences from that defamation and those disgusting tactics. But I know that what she would want me to do is fight back, because that's who she was, and that's who she raised our entire family to be. So that's exactly what we're going to do.
Excellent. All right, so let's get outside of politics for a little bit here, and talk about, you're lifelong South Floridian, right? Get that right? You were born and raised here, if I remember correctly.
Born and raised here, yes. And I've been in District 6 for about 23 years, I believe.
So what do you, outside of politics and work, what do you like doing the most here in South Florida?
Well, I'm in politics and I'm on work, and I have 3 daughters. So every single moment of my spare time is spent with my daughters. Okay. I have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. 1-year-old just turned 1 yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Oh, wow, congrats.
Yeah. So my,
it was a big day yesterday.
Yep, it is. So my hobbies are the hobbies of a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So I try to get them out to the park as often as possible. I try to get them on, their Power Wheels, trying to teach the 4-year-old how to ride her bike now, and trying to get out to the Frost Museum of Science, trying to do things that 4-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and 1-year-olds like to do. If I do have spare time, my wife and I like to cook together, try out new recipes. That's something we enjoy. Okay. But our spare time is most certainly dominated by children activities.
Yep. And I'll say, and for all the parents out there who have older kids, enjoy every moment, because it goes by so fast.
I know it. I try.
Now, in terms of South Florida, you're a lifelong South Floridian. What do you love most here about South Florida?
I think my favorite part of South Florida is the people.
Okay.
We have a rich, diverse resident base. People from all walks of life. I love the folks who immigrated here. I love the folks that lived in Ohio for 30 years and then moved down here, in the 70s and decided to call it their home. Veterans, folks that are just getting here from other countries looking for a brand new, shot at life. And those of us that got here a long time ago have all taken separate paths. I think one of the things that makes this most interesting is just that. I mean, it leads to a lot of good restaurants. That's number one. It leads to a lot of, opening your brain and open your mind and self-development to speak to and work with and deal with folks who come from everywhere. There's other parts of the country which are fantastic, but where everybody's kind of just like you. Yeah. Here we have a big diversity of folks, and I think the product of that is an amazingly colorful place to live, with new ideas, buzz, and a lot of folks operating with hope for a prosperous future.
Amen. So as we wrap it up, anything else that's come to mind that you like to share with voters and residents throughout South Florida that maybe we haven't covered yet?
Well, I think this is an incredibly important election. I like to remind people that what they're voting for here in District 6 is one of 13 votes that makes decisions regarding a $10 billion budget that manages the biggest fire department in the southeastern region, biggest police department, I believe, in the state. These are humongous agencies that has a major transportation task ahead of us. Yeah. And the decisions that we make on the county commission are critical to the way that your life is going to be over the next decade. Whoever's elected now will probably be there for 8 years, 4 years at least, but probably 8, I would say. and this will affect your life when you go and vote in November. I understand that you're going to see a lot more advertisements and hear a lot more about some of these federal races, but nobody's going to affect you more than who's sitting in that chair in District 6. Nobody's going to be able to make more things happen for Miami Springs than the persons that's sitting in that chair for District 6. So please be very careful who you put in office come November. Take a look, go on the internet, take a look at the truth, look at our endorsements, look at who's endorsed by the most local officials who have been here watching that person, that being me, over the last 3.5 years, seeing how we work, seeing that we're about action, not merely words. Look at who the police and the firefighters endorse. These are folks we trust in our most vulnerable moments, and they have both come out saying that they fully endorse me. Let's make this happen. Pay attention and make sure you vote all the way down the ballot. My ballot number is number 79. Votes on November 8th, and I'm Jorge Fors, and I hope I can have your vote.
George, and where can people learn a little bit more about you?
We have a website, forsdistrict6.com. You can also email me at george@forsdistrict6.com. And if you type in Jorge Fors in either Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you will bump into not only me, but also my official pages.
Okay.
As a City of Coral Gables Commissioner, you'll see a lot of what we've accomplished during my time as a Coral Gables Commissioner, not only on the campaign trail.
And I don't want to underscore, when you said or underplay the budget for Miami-Dade County and the GDP and our economy in Miami-Dade County rivals that of some states. I mean, Miami-Dade is so big and so, well, it's geographically, it's just, one county within the big state of Florida. Mm-hmm. But our GDP is so huge, and the budget for the government is significant. I mean, there's some small states out there like Montana and Wyoming that they wish they had, the kind of economy that we have here in Miami-Dade County. So folks, get out there and vote. And when does early voting start?
Early voting, the exact date escapes me, but it's going to be exactly 2 weeks leading up to November 8th.
So 2 weeks before November 8th, you can start with early voting. You can obviously request to vote by mail now. I guess you can start to request your ballot.
You can up until, I believe, early October. You can still request it.
Okay.
If you have a request in, it will arrive.
Perfect.
Probably not at the end of this week, but at the end of next week.
All right.
Sometime around that. One of the things we're going to do when we become county commissioner is try to get Miami Springs a convenient early voting site.
Got it. Okay.
Because from what I understand, there's not really a great one for you guys to go to. So we'll try to get that done as well. It's something I learned during the past early voting cycle.
Well, folks can vote by mail. Look, yeah. I'll be honest. Voting on election day is so easy. That,
it is.
It's always good to get that vote early, but I'm a traditionalist. I still like going out on election day. I like the buzz of going to my polling location on election day, which will be November 8th here for this election. And so, George, again, we really appreciate you welcoming us to your office. You have, again, a beautiful office here in Coral Gables, and appreciate you accommodating our time. And appreciating you opening yourselves to speak out to the residents and going out. Look, to all the candidates who've gone out to run, it's not easy going through this process. So we really appreciate the amount of effort and time that you put into this, and thank all the candidates who both even the first campaign and the second campaign are running, and again wish you the best of luck here on November 8th, and look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Really appreciate it.